Welcome to Peter and Roughie's football show, sponsored by Arnold Clark. I'm Peter Martin, Alan Rough, Tam Cowan and Darren Jackson here with me on this Tuesday. Delighted to have your company. You can like, share and follow us on Facebook. You can hit that subscribe button and get the old bell notifying you when we're on live. And of course, all our unique content available on YouTube. And you can follow us on Twitter as well. Simple as that. It looks as if Celtic are involved in a political mess as well as recreation. The debate that we're having at the moment, is it recreation for Celtic in Dubai or is it training? That's what you can give us your thoughts on. That's one of the topics we'll be discussing today. And of course, there's the transfer window, players coming in and out. Motherwell's looking for a manager, 4 people in the running for it. We'll get Tam's insight into who he thinks would be the best candidate to take over from the departed Stephen Robinson. So that's just a few of the topics you might still want to on a Tuesday, well after an Old Firm game is finished. You might want to talk about it, who knows, or indeed your club and where they're sitting in the Premiership at the moment. So there's lots to talk about, and of course lots of people mentioning Roughie and passing on their best wishes to you, because you look as if you're getting stronger every day. Robert McKenna was worried about you yesterday. He's an avid fan of the programme, and he lives quite a distance away from the UK, and he was just worried about you yesterday. You looked frail, Roughie, and it's been a tough old ride for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's the same for everybody who catches it. That's no bad. I missed that last bit there. It's not been that bad a ride. I've had that better. Let's put it that way. If we're going to talk about it, there's better moments. No, but it's okay laughing and joking about them when it's away. But for anybody who catches it, well, I feel sorry for them. I really do.
Just to clarify, he's talking about COVID. He's talking about COVID, just in case you're thinking about something else that he's caught. Anyway, apart from anything else, there was a telepathy there between the two Motherwell boys, because I had a look at Cowan and he was about 2 miles ahead of me as soon as I opened my big fat gob. So nevertheless, great to have you guys on board. It looks as if we're into a political football involving Celtic. They're over in Dubai for this midwinter break, training in the weather that is extremely hot, and it looks as if the argument here is, should they have gone in the first place? Should they have consulted the government after the November date that they said they did, to see if it was still okay, bearing in mind that lockdown suddenly was upon us and everybody's obeying the rules, despite the fact it's an elite sport? Should Celtic have gone to Dubai? Well, here's, first of all, what Celtic had to say on the matter. The training camp was arranged a number of months ago and approved by all relevant footballing authorities, as well as the Scottish Government through the Joint Response Group on the 12th of November 2020. The team travelled prior to any new lockdown being in place to a location exempt from travel restrictions. The camp, the same one as we have undertaken for a number of years, has been fully risk assessed. If the club had not received Scottish Government approval, then we would not have travelled. So that was the statement released by Celtic. The government subsequently since then has released a statement on this, and I think John Swinney's been on BBC Radio Scotland talking about it. Following the First Minister's latest update to Parliament, we would ask people not to travel internationally across the UK or beyond their local authority area unless absolutely necessary. We would expect the SFA to look into Celtic's trip further. There are travel exemptions in place for elite sports which are designed to facilitate international and European competition. However, if we feel they are being abused, we won't hesitate to remove that privilege. Okay, I've set the scene for you. We'll all have our opinion on it. What do you make of it, Tam?
Well, first up, Peter, I'm a firm believer that football and politics shouldn't mix. So I would simply see it for the point of view of the Celtic fans. I'm a supporter of a Scottish club myself, and I've got pals that are big Celtic fans, and they're absolutely disgusted at the very thought of, when they're being cooped up in the house, all they're allowed to do is to go out the front door, is go to an essential shop to pick up a loaf and a pint of milk. That the team at the pump thousands of pounds into every single year are suddenly allowed to go in what appears to be a bit of a jolly to Dubai. It's incredible, and yeah, Celtic apparently got permission. It was all rubber stamped by the appropriate authorities. I just wonder, Peter, nothing is simple politically in the era we're currently living in. But I wonder if somebody from the government side of things, the Scottish government, could maybe have tipped Celtic the wink that, you know what, this lockdown is going to kick in again. We're going to have lockdown 2. And guys, I'm not telling you how to run your business, but it might not look great if the country is in lockdown and you're jetting out to have a few beers poolside in Dubai. So I think, just in my heart of hearts as a football supporter, we've all seen things like this, and at a much lesser extent. I remember even way back, Partick Thistle, Roughie will remember, used to enjoying the John Lambie days, their wee Johnston to Blackpool, which was meant to be a trip and a half. And I remember in the past when Partick Thistle were struggling a wee bit in the home front, pals that I've got that are Jags fans been up in arms because there they were going for what was deemed to be a holiday down to Blackpool when they should be maybe putting all their focus on the training ground. And my final point on that, talking of training grounds, Celtic, quite rightly, I imagine, in recent years have billed and cooed about this wonderful Lennoxtown training facility that they've got. And, okay, it's the winter, but I'm sure they've got heaters and radiators and stuff at it, and they could have done a wee bit of training there. I just think we've been 19 points behind. 19 points behind Rangers halfway through the season. It just does not sit well with the Celtic fans, perfectly understandably.
Yeah. Well, Bill Muirhead says exactly what you said. He says it's Celtic on a jolly, Peter. Everybody's got their opinion on this one. And for what it's worth, Roughie, I do think there's a bit of politics being played here on this one, because I don't think Celtic should have gone. I think they should have used a bit of common sense on it. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the club were well aware that lockdown was coming. We were all well aware of it, and we don't have tremendous amounts of insight into government protocol, what they were doing, what they were planning. We just know from reading up on it. So that's the first thing, Roughie, that sticks in my throat about it. I'm not really buying into I don't really care about whether it was 19 points or not, because quite simply they had booked it well in advance. But I have to throw a little bit of doubt, Roughie, on the fact that they would have been in contact with everyone. They would have been talking to the SFA. They would have said, look, we're going on this. How do we stand? What are the repercussions? The same with the government. Everybody would have been in close contact as far as what was happening in the country and what was going down. And again, I look at it from the flip side of it, and I think the politicians are playing a bit of clever politics with this, Roughie, as well. Should they have gone? No, in my opinion. What's yours?
No, I don't think they should have went either. I think they should have used common sense, a wee bit of good PR. Tam's touched on it, the way the lay the land is just now with the football side of it. A good bit of PR would have got some pats at the back to say, no, maybe we don't really want to go. But I agree with you 100%, Peter. I think both of them are just covering their own tracks. I think the timing and the whole thing makes it a lot worse as well. Obviously that everybody's got to wait at the end of this month before we can come out of another lockdown. So in the face of it, it doesn't look good at all. But I mean, Celtic have got paperwork in their hands that say, that it was okay to go. But the thing about it was okay to go on the 12th of December in that statement. 12th of December to the 31st of December is a long, long time, and things change with this COVID. And I think that's the case. I just think from Celtic's point of view, a wee bit of PR, no, we're not going to go. We're going to go with the guidelines. We're going to fall into place where everybody else would have been a better place to be rather than where they are just now.
And of course, Darren, as you're well aware, in the 21st century, there's social media aplenty. There's always somebody taking a photograph. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a certain amount of sympathy on this point, and I hope people don't jump in my head for it. But if they're going for training, then all well and good. But even if you were going for training and suddenly in that bubble, you're sitting by a pool, I mean, are we expecting them to train 24/7? Are people up in arms because they've spotted them sitting next to each other having a beer? It's an absolute disgrace. I mean, have you gone skating at Queen's Park recently, Darren? I mean, honestly, some people need to have a long, hard look at themselves. I mean, if they're going out there to train, fine and dandy, but I don't expect them to be training 24/7.
Peter, I'm with you and I'm with the boys. I don't think they should have gone. Just the situation, I think it would have been sensible just to stay at home because, as you said, and I was going to say it before you even jumped onto it, social media. There's been one picture of what we saw, Lenny and Scott sitting having a drink. Now, Tam's touched on it. There is no chance they're out there having a jolly because you don't do that when you're away. Now, I'm not saying they've only had one pint, but you saw the next day, as you said on social media, they have all their training stuff on it. They're up first thing. They're no on the beer or on the drink all night. They've maybe had a couple of drinks to relax because they've got off the flight, and then they'll train all week. It's no a jolly. But as I said, it's given people the chance to have a go at them because camera phones we know how dangerous they are now, and it doesn't matter what you do. They could be out for a meal, they could be having a Coca-Cola, that'll be a vodka and Coke. And that's what people want to see, and that's what people, as I say, will jump on the back of. But 100%, and I've been on, Roughie, you've been on them. They're no all jollies, and they're definitely no jollies. They'll be out there working. They've had a pint probably when they've landed and got to the hotel, and it's work time. But I still don't think they should have gone.
Yeah, Gordon McFadden said, it's called discretion, Peter. They haven't used any at all. Well, I don't think you can say definitively that Celtic haven't used any discretion. I think we're being critical of them in the sense that we don't think they should have gone, bearing in mind the way the country has gone into lockdown. I think all of us are 100% on that opinion. But the hypocrisy of some people, wanting everyone hammered, whether they have an agenda against any club, I'm not prepared to get into that. But, the hypocrisy of people looking at a situation where they're in a bubble, Tam. Everybody's not going to be 2 metres away from each other. They're not 2 metres away from each other when they score a goal and all cuddle each other. They are in a bubble. They can, and in that bubble, somewhere along the line, they can contract the COVID infection. It's perfectly possible that they can, but they're in a bubble, and to the best of their abilities, they are tested on a regular basis. Now, if they're going to get battered or they've broken any rules for sitting next to each other having a pint, let's wait and see. I'm not too bothered with that. I think the core issue here is, and I was listening to some politicians today, and I think, no, I'm just going to disregard the way you're playing the politics of this. If Celtic have broken the rules, then they should be hammered. If they haven't, then what we're discussing is basically, should they have used the common sense to go in the first place? I think that's the burning issue. Not whether I don't think they're breaking any rules, Tam.
No, and I do wonder though if starting right at the top of the club, Dermot Desmond, all the way down through Peter Lawwell to Neil Lennon himself and the players, I'm sure at some point somebody must have turned around and said, listen, do you think this is such a good idea? Particularly, of course, coming right in the back of the defeat by Rangers. But as you say, Peter, if they haven't broken any rules, then fine. And I'm sure there's certainly every move they make, Celtic, when they're out there, it's going to be examined from afar. There'll be folk almost hoping that they step out of line. Might have been a nice touch, incidentally, if they'd invited Bolingoli along to Dubai, just to put a wee arm around him and say, look, it's fine to come here, come on, a wee free transfer for a couple of weeks. But no, I just think, I only see it, Peter, for the point of view of the fans. And another element of that, I remember at Motherwell when Terry Butcher had been going through a pretty rough time as manager, and Big Terry had a penchant for turning up, maybe doing the odd England game or an English Cup game for Radio 5 Live. And the minute he popped up in the radio, when we were doing pretty poorly at Fir Park, then you get fans that wanted to be straight into him and saying, what's he doing on the radio? He should be taking training and all the rest of it. Fans are very, very one-dimensional, and I have got every single bit of sympathy with the Celtic fans who almost cannot believe their eyes that the way everything is domestically, they're Celtic, even if they are in for many, but the very image of them sitting by a pool in the sunshine, having a beer, it just doesn't sit right for me at all.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement with that one. So,
Peter, can I just have a wee request? that you just keep Tam on the small screen, because every time you open it up, I see Stevie Kirk and Tommy McLean with the Scottish Cup, and it's kind of sticking in my throat, and I'm not enjoying it.
I had a feeling that would annoy the life out of you. By the way, you thought you'd won the cup for United that day, Dan, didn't you?
Well, I thought I'd given us a chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not really.
You're the
thing
only
is,
guy along
Darren,
with Dave Bowman I don't like to ask about it.
If I turn the camera the other way, Darren, just up on the wall, you can't see I've got a big poster of Andy Ritchie, but I didn't want to terrify Roughie.
Absolutely. Anyway, apart from anything else, we've dealt with the issue, which again has angered a lot of people, but we're dealing with it, and lots of people have got their own point of view on this one. I'll tell you one thing: I would not like to see Celtic coming back and suddenly declaring somebody's got coronavirus or it's ripped through the side. Then you need to get the tin helmets on, because they would be absolutely scattergunned by everybody. So I think they've left themselves also wide open as well for the next couple of weeks too. And of course, let's not forget, and a number of people have mentioned it, that there are a number of games that Celtic have still to play, and Hibs are not too pleased that they moved their game suddenly to January the 11th. Listen, it's about opinions. We've given you it. One of the other things that has happened, we were all asking the question, Roughie, whether Neil Lennon would actually be in place as the manager. It looks as if Dermot Desmond and Peter Lawwell have had a chat, and they're quite happy for him to take it to the summer, which tells me that, the game's a bogey. They've obviously just looked at it and said, well, we'll take what comes.
Yeah, I think they've looked at the rest of the season. They've obviously discussed, what is there to get out of the rest of the season. There's obviously, they will believe there's still the league to be hauled back. There's a Scottish Cup game. There's a couple of games against Rangers, which are always important. The supporters to look after as well. But I think they laid the rules down about 7 weeks ago when they said to him, look, you've got 7 games before the Rangers game. You have to improve. You have to go into that game. You have to show us that the player suddenly throwing you under a bus, blah, blah, blah. And he's done that, so that's a saving grace for him. No, the result wasn't the result they wanted. The performance, yes, you would go with that. So I think they've not got off the hook, but I think that it's made it a lot easier for them to say, right, let's see what happens at the end of the season. But you would like to think that there's a lot of things could go the other way for the end of the season. So you would like to think that they've been responsible enough to look at what is out there, because at the moment there doesn't seem to be anything that's out there. And if they are going to make a change, they have to be prepared for it and act swifter than what they usually do, So I would still think there would be things going on behind the scenes, because they are responsible people. But again, it's all up to what they do from now until the end of the season.
Yeah, this January transfer window, never a great time to sign players. And I'm sure you like this line like a hole in the head, Tam, but possibly they're looking at Declan Gallagher. Shane Duffy's gone back from Dubai to the UK for personal reasons, family reasons, which we don't wish any ill whatsoever on Shane Duffy. Hopefully everything is all right and when he goes back. But whether he comes back to Celtic is another matter. I think they should just let him go back to Brighton. They do need a centre-half. They possibly need a winger. But what's your thoughts on Declan Gallagher possibly heading that way? That's the speculation.
Yeah, it'd be a big loss. Of course, Peter, basically like the rest of the team, his form maybe hasn't been at its peak in recent weeks. There's been a general malaise throughout the team, even when you see a wee guy like Alan Campbell not only struggling, but when you see a wee guy like Alan Campbell suddenly getting even a wee bit of criticism from Motherwell fans, who up until now had a complete and utter blind spot for him. And, we used to joke about it in this programme, Peter, how much I raved about Declan Gallagher. And so if there's a chance that he's going to leave the club and go elsewhere, I'm not willing to be that two-faced and maybe make out that I was only exaggerating before. I think he's an absolutely brilliant player. I think he is now going to be a stalwart in that Scotland team. And yeah, if you look at Celtic bringing him in, whatever they would have to pay him, compared to reports of the 40 grand a week they were paying to get Shane Duffy on loan. He would seem like the ultimate bargain. But in all the report that I read about Declan Gallagher, there was kind of, it was all about a source said or someone near the player said. I didn't hear too many direct quotes to kind of back up the story so far.
Yeah, well, and there could be one coming in Liam Kelly at Fir Park, Tam. So clearly, whoever the manager is, he's obviously going to be looking to try and get players in quickly. I think if you're getting players in before there's a manager, and that tells you the way modern football is, Tam, they just have to look at what's available and try and get it in and hope the manager can coach them. Who would you like to see as the Motherwell manager?
Well, you know what, Peter? After losing 3-0 to Hamilton Accies and knowing how it works, I feared for Keith Lasley getting the job. I think he had to get in there, first game in charge, make a bit of an impact. But when I then heard, I was sitting in the BBC as these live, unedited interviews after the game was coming in from Hamilton Accies Stadium, and I thought, there's a guy that's really got the club at heart. He was absolutely beeling. He looked as if he'd just removed every last bit of paint for the away dressing room wall at Hamilton. And I was really impressed with that. I thought, there's a guy that doesn't want to see Motherwell in danger of relegation. So the word was last week that Keith apparently maybe had 4 games in which to try and grab the gig for himself. So, absolutely. Knowing that he's a bit of a club legend, he's been 2 decades at Motherwell. Seems quite incredible, Peter. Recipient of a testimonial, a bit of a fan's favourite. Kind of, wee bit of, you can't blame it when football fans get a wee bit of sentiment in the way they're clear thinking. But yeah, I'd be quite keen on Keith getting a crack at it. I keep hearing great things about Maurice Ross, about his coaching abilities, and you've got other guys behind the scenes there, of course, club legends as well, like Stephen Craigan and Stevie Hamill. But if I take off the kind of claret and amber specs and dab at my misty eyes and come at it hard, then I think you would need to maybe look at somebody like Tommy Wright. I hate to use that expression, a safe pair of horns, but when you think it's only goal difference, means that we're not right at the foot of the league now, then maybe Tommy is the sort of appointment that we need right just now. But the only thing I would say, Peter, I mentioned it in the radio at the weekend, I had 3 independent texts from gentlemen who all have managerial experience in Scotland, and all 3 of them, I'll paraphrase, but all 3 of them basically says, get your money on Steve Evans, the Scottish guy who's done it. I think he's doing it at Gillingham just now. I think he's originally for Cambuslang. Apparently very keen to come back up the road to Scotland. Last time I looked, he was 16-1 with the bookies, so might be worth a wee tenner. I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, okay. Don't forget to gamble responsibly. We always like to tell you that. I have to say, having heard Roughie on the after-dinner circuit for a number of years, Roughie, I would have hated the suggestion that after 1 gig, we were going to make a decision on whether you were allowed 2, 3, 4 and 5 gigs. I mean, football is so mad that, after 1 game, people actually think, we're not giving it to Lasley 3-0. But, managers have to be given that chance. I mean, who would be Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Yeah. I mean, 4 weeks ago, they were slaughtering him. 4 weeks on, they think he's, the next Alex Ferguson. I mean, Keith Lasley, I'm a big fan of Keith Lasley, both as a person. I loved him as a player. We don't know what he's got. We don't know what Maurice Ross has got. Yeah. Alan Burrows and the board will make that big call. Tam mentioned Tommy Wright. Tommy Wright's not a safe pair of hands. Tommy Wright is an absolutely top-drawer manager in my book, Roughie. He's won the Scottish Cup with the most unfashionable club you could possibly pick.
Yeah, but it is, I've only been in one board that had to pick a manager, and it is very, very interesting when you interview candidates. Some are very, very strong, some aren't. I think Keith Lasley, as Tam has said there, has got 20 years under his belt. They know exactly what he's doing behind the scenes. A lot of fans don't exactly know what managers, they think the managers just pick the team and roll them out there and hope to get a win. But there's so many things go on behind the scene, the academies and, you know, what they've got hands on and doing and bringing young players through. And these things will all be taken into consideration. I think Keane Lasley on paper looked a fantastic pick, but there are too many managers out there. You know, you've not mentioned Gary Holt, you know, who made that unbelievable decision of stepping aside, and now look at Livingston. You can't, I mean, I'd like to think you can't say just because Gary stepped aside, they've now won 6 games in a row. You know, that just shows you how things change in football. You know, that, but no, it's an interesting one because I think the last time Hamilton applied for a job, there was 30 people applied for it. So there's going to be lots of guys out there, and it's a big, big decision that you've got to make.
Yeah, Darren, far be it from, listen, it's about opinions. Everybody thinks sometimes I pick on Roughie, but Gary Holt's not getting the Motherwell job, let's be honest about it. I'll be 16-1 if Steve Evans comes in, I'll be gobsmacked. I think they might look a little closer to home. Tell me what's in your mind.
Well, I was there on Saturday. I just spoke to Tam before we came on air, and it's probably the most unconfident team I've seen for a long time on Saturday. When the first goal went in, they just went, and Tam's right. A young boy like Alan Cam, obviously he hears what the fans say and all that, the Motherwell fans, but he just looks just way short of confidence in everything he does. He's normally, Tam knows what he's like. He gets about the pitch, he makes tackles, and he gets forward, and he just looked well off it. You've got Scotland centre half and Scotland right back who look well off it as well, and that's no criticism. That's just, I've been there. The first goal goes in, and you just think to yourself, where are we going to get a goal from? Tony Watt, who Tam will tell me, in the games I've watched Tam, I think he's done really well for Motherwell. Another player who just looked well short on Saturday, and they just weren't playing with freedom. They just, when you're losing games, it's like the weight on your shoulders, and it is when the first goal goes in, you're thinking that, right, we've lost. We're not going to get back into the game. But I think you're right. I've been to Motherwell training with wee Robbo and Keith Lasley, and there's Maurice Ross here now who has got a good name for himself. And even though he's a goalkeeping coach, I've been with Craig Hinchcliffe at Dundee United, who is very, very good on the game, not just as for the goalkeepers, but the outfield players as well. So, yes, I think you have to give Keith Lasley, I think you have to give him 3, 4, 5 games. And I know you'll say, well, if we lose the next one, we'll lose the next one. But you need to, if they'd won the game 4-0, would you turn around and say, well, he's getting the job? Well, you shouldn't really, because you should wait 3, 4 games, interview him. Like I was listening to Alan Burrows in the stand, and he, when you talk about passion, Tam, you'll have seen Alan Burrows. He kicks every single ball that's on the pitch, and it's just a passion for Motherwell. And Lass has that as well. And sometimes, Peter, that's what fans are looking for. And Tam liked his interview after the game, even though they lost. He liked his interview, that he was really, really hurting. And they'll get he's not had a lot of time to get in the training pitch. He'll get in the training pitch and put his thoughts over. Robbo's thoughts, he'll have learned so much from Robbo, 100%, but he'll put his thoughts over now, and that'll take the players a wee bit time to understand and take it on board. But I think you've got to give 4 or 5 games.
Another reason, Peter, another reason for wanting to see Keith Lasley stay in the job just now is after the post-match interview at Hamilton Accies at the weekend. I'm desperate to see what his team lineup is going to be against St Mirren, which is our next game this weekend coming, because you get a feeling that he was going to do more than just shuffle it about a wee bit, so I'm intrigued by that, but ultimately, Peter, and it might sound as if the alarm bells are already sounding, but when you say who's the right guy to come in at Motherwell just now, honestly, as a fan, I'm just thinking whoever it is that can up. It's as simple as that. I mean, we're very, very lucky at Motherwell. We've enjoyed what's that been now, about 35, 36 years as a top flight club, and before MD chips in, I know that we've had a wee couple of lucky breaks in that time, what with league reconstruction and Brockville famously been deemed unfit for the top flight, which saved their bacon another year. But we have enjoyed all that spell in the top flight, and particularly in the COVID era, Peter, you used to get fans at a lot of clubs that enjoyed time in the top flight saying, "Oh, you know what? It might be good fun getting down a league, get down to the first division, get down to the championship, whatever it was called. That might be fun, and we pick up some wins and all that." Absolutely not. Anybody that is looking after the pounds, shillings and pence at any club right now will tell us that you need to be in that top flight when every penny, particularly now, is a prisoner. There's no romance about getting down and thinking, "Oh, I've not been to Palmerston Park for years. Oh, it'd be great going to Somerset Park in Ayr, wouldn't it?" Nonsense. Motherwell need to stay up. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Peter,
I agree with you.
Tam will know, Motherwell have always liked a manager from England who knows the lower leagues. Like Martin Foyle, I think Martin Foyle did a fantastic job. The recruitment's been very good at Motherwell. You'll not say that just now because obviously they're not winning games, but the recruitment's been very good, picking players from down south, and they've liked that in their last few managers, that boys that have been down south and know the lower league. So that I would imagine that maybe that's where Steve Evans' name's coming into.
Yeah.
Well, we wait to see whether, excuse me, it's going to be Steve Evans or a Keith Lasley or indeed a Tommy Wright who's going to get that job. Only time will tell. And will they have enough in their locker to try and steer Motherwell away from possible relegation? Just be thankful, Tam, Motherwell are not in a WhatsApp group, or you'd be relegated now.
Absolutely. I'm just thankful I wasn't out with you and Roughie last night by the sounds of you.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I can't listen. Listen, we had one beer by a swimming pool. What's your problem? Calm your jets, you.
Sorry, you're entitled.
We're working together. Just it was a bit strange. It was freezing, but nevertheless, let's crack on. There's lots of other things to talk about. One of them is an interesting one, Roughie. Is the club 1872 have now acquired, I think, at 1.25 million shares. Now, this is obviously off the back of Dave King releasing them. They're trying to get as much money together as possible to buy as many of these shares and obviously have their place on the board. I still think long term for Rangers, regardless of how much or how many of the shares go into a club 1872 or whatever, I still think Rangers need a kind of a Douglas Park, a kind of a main benefactor who's got a sufficient amount of funds, Roughie, so that Rangers can continue to build all the way back to where they think they should be.
Yeah. Well, I think Tam is more advising that role with the way that Motherwell have went down the road. We are actually going down that road as well eventually when it happens. But you're right, there has to be some kind of power base that makes the massive decisions, because let's not kid ourselves on, Rangers are dealing in millions and millions of pounds. I do think that supporters should always have a part to play. Any particular club there, the people who put their season ticket money in and everything, it's just where you draw the line, and I think that'll be a big issue with Rangers. Is okay, the supporters might have all these shares and everything, but how much decision making are you going to let them make? I do think there is a part for them to play at any club. That I just think the power base at Rangers with Park and everybody there who's put in millions and millions of pounds, they're not going to step aside, and let supporters come in and make the big decisions for the future of Rangers Football Club. But I do think there is a place for supporters, there's no doubt about that, but we'll just have to wait and see how that all pans out.
Yeah, and of course they'll be keeping a close eye this month on players. Will there be players coming in at Rangers? Will there be players going out? Jordan Jones, George Edmondson, suggestions they could be going out on loan. One man I won't be leaving. I just spotted this, Dan. I think he deserves a special mention. Steve Davis. I've got a lot of time for him. I think he's a really good player. He's got 124 caps. The next cap that he'll get for Northern Ireland will equal Peter Shilton's record, and I've no doubt he'll go on to break that record second time around. He's a class act.
Yeah, I've always been a fan, Peter. I think he's a fantastic player. He's obviously can't get about the pitch like he used to do, but he keeps the ball well. Obviously, I'm good pals with Michael O'Neill, and Michael speaks very, very highly of him, the way he just conducts himself off the pitch. Just doesn't like the limelight. Just gets on with his job. When Michael was down at Southampton, seen him when he was down there. But I've always been a fan of Steve Davis. I think when he first came up from Southampton, he wasn't at his best. But he hadn't played for Southampton for a while, Peter. It takes time. But his experience and his class he's always been a top player, as I say.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, Tom? Peter. Just to clarify, the record that you're saying that he beats Peter Shilton. What is that? The British cap record you're talking about? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. 125 caps, which is incredible. And to be perfectly honest with you, Roughie, just on that point, if it wasn't for Ray Clements, I don't think anybody would get near Peter Shilton's cap haul, because he would have had a heck of a lot more.
Oh, it'd have been the two of them sort of shared it between them. Whatever manager came in was frightened to pick one more than the other, and it just shows you with the amount of caps he got. We shared it with Clements. You're right, it would have been much, much more than that.
It's 8 or 9 years together, Roughie, and when you just said no there, I thought, wow, that's one of the shortest answers he's ever going to give on this programme.
I was just going to ask, could I be excused for 30 minutes? There's 30 seconds. There's something happening out in my garden that shouldn't be happening. It's quite serious. Just for 30 seconds.
Fire away. 30 seconds,
okay,
30 minutes. We'll go for it.
Peter, let's have the viewers on Facebook try to guess what's happening in Roughie's garden, and whoever gets it first to get it right wins a PLZ T-shirt or a jacket. How about that?
Tam, honestly, you took the words right out of my mouth, because I am actually at this point thinking, I hope he's left the mic on so we can hear what's happening in the garden. And of course, people are going to say, well, who's in Roughie's garden and why are they in it? Because have they been given permission to leave their house, Darren? And the last
Will he tell us?
See,
you think he'll tell us?
Well, it could be volleyball and goalie rolling about in the grass out in the front there. We need to know these things, Darren, just in case it's breaking the COVID rules. But that is certainly the most... just shows you it's live, by the way, folks, because... he's back now. The big question will be answered. Hold on a second, just out of curiosity, I kid you not, I might as well read out some of the answers, Tam, before we get the real answer. He's saying is Senga. Senga has shown up now. For the benefit of anybody who doesn't know, Senga was Roughie's first love, and the horse ran away. Some people know you. He's left his gin and tonic out in the garden, and I think the most popular one, Keith O'Flaherty, summed it up. Senga is waiting for him outside, and I think maybe that was probably the closest to it all, because Roughie mentioned the key word there. I'll be back with you in 30 seconds. Roughie, Roughie, what was happening in your front garden?
Yeah, well, as you know, I live out in the country and I don't get many animal visitors. And when I looked out the window, unfortunately, there was a poor dog lying in the garden. It looked as if it had just had enough. And I was just a wee bit worried about it.
And is it okay?
It has a winter coat on, so I don't know if it's lost but it looks as if it's on its way out. So I'll have to hang on another 30 minutes to see what I can do for it.
So where did it get the winter coat? Was that a Christmas?
Well, it must
present,
have been out. Somebody must have lost it. And don't you start being non-dog friendly now. So it's lost. It's a lost dog.
I'm greeting already.
Honestly,
MD.
Well, I've got to sit and look at it in the garden for the next 30 minutes.
Oh, Peter, for MD out there watching this today that once upon a time didn't have a dog, and then they suddenly did have a dog, and I'm in that bracket. Oh, your whole mentality changes. Honestly, I couldn't watch a Lassie film now. I'd be in bits.
Yeah. Wait till your dog dies during the show. Then you'll know how to handle
it. Which Tam, who's looking and thinking this hasn't happened, I have to tell you that Roughie's wife, who's got no concept whatsoever of timing, phoned Roughie during one of our Saturday shows. It was me, McAvenny and Roughie. And I think Gordon Smith was with us as well. And, Roughie, in the break, decided to go to the toilet. The phone went, picked it up in the break, came back on the programme with 25 minutes to go and was in bits. And we were looking at him thinking, what's happened to him? And Maggie thought it would be a great time to tell him that his favourite dog had died. So we were waiting on him.
He's missed it. He's missed it the 5 minutes before it when I got the phone call to say the vet says that I need my permission to put him down.
Yeah. Maybe not a good time to do that, Roughie, because
it was just as then when the final scores were coming in. And Peter says to me, Aberdeen have just scored a late goal at Pedodji. I went, I couldn't give a flying.
So there you are. Anyway, apart from anything else, one of the good things.
So I will save this dog at the end of the show. If anybody's lost a dog, I'll save this dog at the end of the show. Okay.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Roughie. That's absolutely magnificent. The other thing I was going to say to you, one good thing about the month of January is lots of people, wonder about the players that they're going to sign. Here's 5 things to look out for in the window.
The transfer window is open in Scotland and across Europe once again, so here's 5 things to look out for this month. 5. The goalkeeper hunt. Hibernian and Motherwell have let respective keepers Dylan Barnes and Jordan Archer rejoin their parent clubs, so both in the market for a new man between the sticks. Dundee United's Benjamin Siegrist has been a standout so far this season. He could be on a few people's radars, while Celtic looks set to stick with £5 million man Vasilis Barkas. 4. MLS moves. The American season has come to a close, linking players back to Scotland. Chris Cadden, formerly of Motherwell, is being lined up by Hibs after a stint at Columbus Crew, whilst Aberdeen could re-sign former Don Gary Mackay-Steven from New York City. 3. Rangers title push. The Gers are 19 points clear, but nothing is won yet. Will we see them bring in an extra midfielder or attacker to help get them over the line? Extra cover could be brought in if the likes of Greg Stewart or Jordan Jones are allowed to leave the club. 2. Celtic exits. The Hoops season is not over yet, but it's decision time. Do they cash in on one-to-way players such as Hatem El Hamed or Olivier Cham? And can they resist big cash offers if they come in for Christopher Ayer or Odsonne Edouard, who both only have 18 months left on their deals? 1. Pre-contract deals. We've already seen Kilmarnock's Eamon Brophy agree a move to St Mirren 6 months before his contract expires, and expect much more of that. Ross Stewart of Ross County and Stuart Finlay, also of Kilmarnock, are 2 such players, whilst the Motherwell trio of Stephen O'Donnell, Declan Gallagher and Alan Campbell can all speak to different clubs now.
Well, I don't know about you, Darren, but 2 of those players caught me by surprise. Eamon Brophy to St Mirren is a good move, and I think Hibs getting Chris Cadden is a great move as well.
Yeah, when I was scouting for Blackburn, Peter, I'm a big fan of Cadden. I think he's very good. Right back, right mid, you could play him centre mid. I think if Hibs managed to get hold of him, I think it would be a brilliant signing. And Brophy as well. I'm another fan of Brophy. I'm surprised, and I'm not being disrespectful. I thought Brophy would have got a really good move. I think he's one that I watched him last year when he plays up front. I mean, he puts some shift in. He can play as a 9 himself, but when he plays in as a pair, he scores. I think he scores a lot more goals. And as I said, I thought there would have been bigger teams interested in Brophy.
Yeah, I'm looking here at Ronnie Porter says, my sister-in-law has a wee dog and I've just showed her Roughie on the PLZ show and her wee dog keeps barking at Roughie's face. So that says it all, really. And lots of people commenting on that. Although I have to say, Roughie's just having a quick geek out his window there as well, just to see how the dog's going. Tam, loan deals is a common part of Scottish football nowadays. Sometimes people have to look to guys that are kicking their heels down in England, further down the leagues in England, to see if they can just unlock a wee gem. And as Dan mentioned earlier on the show, Motherwell usually are at the forefront of that. There's a couple there that I thought, usually Motherwell are there to sneak in with those.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, loan deals have been all the rage now for long enough in football, Peter. And, you just wonder when, at what point in the future fans will look back and say, do you remember when players used to get a testimonial game? Because it seems that at clubs now, those will be less and less frequent, of course, when you had guys at the club that you knew they were there for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Seems a rarity now. Players come and players go, and you only hope. And we've been fairly fortunate way, as Darren mentioned earlier in the show, in recent years, that we've had managers who could pluck the odd gem from the lower reaches of English football. But you just worry if it all goes wrong in that respect one particular season, when all the guys that you bring in, maybe nobody knew about them for a reason, because they're maybe not very good. But I'll tell you what, well, I agree with Dan right away about Eamon Brophy, who, let's not forget, is a full international player now, of course. I think a smashing bit of business there by St Mirren. But, we're not quite out of the season of goodwill to all men, and I'm always for giving somebody a second chance. I would be quite excited if Motherwell maybe had a wee go with Jordan Jones, who, as I'm sure you'll all agree, was absolutely different class at Kilmarnock. He looked dynamite. He looked unplayable. And then, for whatever reason, it just did not work out at Rangers. But that boy is clearly a very, very good player. And, if the future Motherwell manager is watching this, then just for me, go on, give him a wee go, give him another chance.
Yeah, it's interesting you saying that, Tam. It just hasn't quite worked out second time around for Jake Hastie on loan. Jordan Jones has something on the flank to offer, I think so. He just hasn't worked out for him at Rangers. Thanks to Brian, who sent us a lovely little message there on our Facebook as well, just saying, just a heads up, I bought a couple of your legend canvases and absolutely love them. Brilliant value for money on the shop. If you look, you'll see 21 legends that we've got on t-shirts, on canvas, on prints, and of course our Maestro top. I'll be sending a Maestro top to Tam once we all get out safely of lockdown. Darren, I think you've got yours, Darren, haven't you?
Yeah, it's upstairs. Yeah.
Yep, fantastic. And Roughie, as I know, he's got his. No, you're absolutely fine. Absolutely fine. Good for training, good for playing away. Just before we talk about other things, I wanted to get your thoughts, guys, on the lockdown as it stands now. Quite a lot of people mentioning, they wonder if there's going to have to be a decision made over the next couple of months. I don't think there is this time around, Tam, if only for the fact that we're now in a situation where we have a balancing act trying to get the vaccine. Elite sport is still allowed to continue. I think it's a fine race, but I think we're in a better place rather than any league being halted now. I can't see that happening.
Well, right away, Peter, if I can be very selfish on that, I mean, as a Motherwell fan, I'm obviously praying that isn't the scenario, because, of course, Motherwell fans in our heart of hearts were all thinking we'll somehow fight our way out of the position that we find ourselves in the league. But if the season got called early, and let's say virtue of goal difference, that Motherwell were actually bottom, and that we get handed the exact same hand of cards that Heart of Midlothian got, and were relegated, then that is an absolutely scary proposition. So again, whether it's Keith Lasley, whether it's Tommy Wright, whether it's Steve Evans, Graham Alexander, or whoever it may be, I'm just hoping that we get a couple of results pronto to take us away from the foot of the division. Now, I'm like you, Peter, gut reaction as well. I don't imagine the season going to be called to a halt. And you're right, it's probably because always there's that wee bit of light at the end of the tunnel that we all keep talking about, thinking about the vaccine. So yeah, I hope it doesn't happen this season. But again, if there was any fear of that, any Rangers fans tuned into this, they'll think, well, if the season gets stopped, your hand does the title. Same thing happened to Celtic last year. The precedent has been set there, of course. So I don't know if there's too many folk getting their knickers in a twist over this, but I think it will. I think it will be played out. And in fact, you know what, Peter? Can I just say, I'm actually really pleasantly surprised that that we are still playing football. I know that we got a wee bit of a turn for the government at the time, so we could honour that contract for Sky Sports and get the money into the clubs and be able to play what they like to call elite sport But, you know, I'm surprised. You know, and a lot of the doom-mongers out there were maybe thinking that clubs were going to collapse, that maybe leagues were going to be stopped, but we're still in there fighting. And even if you just have to watch it in a stream, on your laptop, on your phone, it is still better than no football whatsoever, let's be brutally honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't like to counter that and put you on a downer, Tam, but there are some clubs who are absolutely teetering on the brink with this, and it's hand to mouth, day by day, to be perfectly honest with you. As far as relegation for Motherwell, just had a quick check on Roughie's WhatsApp. It doesn't look as if Motherwell are going to be relegated right now, Roughie, unless anybody in Inverness is telling you different on Dundee. I mean, I don't know how the votes are going on the WhatsApp group. Roughie,
could I just add,
Motherwell going?
So could I just add there'll be nobody tinkering and folding on the First Division who got £500,000, so they're okay. They will move on.
Absolutely. Okay. Just on your left shoulder, Roughie, that chip, if you just want to move on. Anyway, apart from anything else, thanks to the thousands of people who are talking and passing on messages to us and opinion on our Facebook as well. You can like, share and follow us. If you download the app, it's there at your fingertips. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Just a quick couple of mentions of things. Roughie, we mentioned last night about who's going to win that league. I can't quite call it down in England because Southampton come up with a real surprise last night.
Yeah, I think that took everybody by surprise. That these teams that are not usually in the top six are all hovering about there, and they're all getting results. So I think for me it'll be up to the bigger boys, which one of them actually flex their muscles and start putting a wee run together, because none of them are doing that just now. And we saw what Leicester did when they got a wee taste of it. And I still think the big clubs will be up there. I think everybody's talking about Spurs. They've got a big game tonight, and obviously in the cup. Have they got enough to win it? I'm a big fan of Mourinho. I just think he's good. He's good for the game. I think it's good to see him when he's on top. The stuff he comes away with. So I'm getting behind them this year, I think.
I'm reading your mind, Darren. I know exactly what you're thinking. And I know there'll be 1,000,001 messages from Celtic fans about Mourinho. But nevertheless, listen, I think it would be great if Tottenham could win it. It would be incredible. 1961, Tam, the last time Tottenham won the league. They got a double in that year. Of course, the only reason, Tam, they actually won the league in 61 is because they had a great Scottish player in their ranks, and Dave Mackay. I think they had the great John White as well.
Yeah, I must say as well. You know that me and English football don't necessarily go, Peter. But if I did have to have a soft spot for a team down south, it actually would be Spurs, because in one of my many trips as a kid, we used to go into my dad's uncle in London for a few days, down on the train from Motherwell all the way down into Euston Station. And in one such year, I managed to get taken along to a Tottenham Hotspur game. I think it was Crystal Palace was the opposition. And we won a watch because in that particular day, the majestic Glenn Hoddle was playing and showing the crowd all his tricks and stuff. And I think because, if memory serves, that is the only football match that I have ever watched in England live, unless I'm very much mistaken. No, I think it is. Then I've always maybe had a wee slight soft spot for Spurs. Any team like the team of Hoddles with a bit of flair and stuff, was brilliant. So it'd be great if they clung on. It'd be terrific. But I'll tell you what as well, for all the recent chat, Peter, about, which is very interesting, the Rangers fans will enjoy this. I think there was a lot of folk not so long ago thinking, you know what, if Steven Gerrard did end up at Liverpool, he'd maybe need the wee stepping stone elsewhere first. He'd maybe need to go and do a West Brom first, or whoever it might be. But to give him his due, the turnaround at Rangers, you wouldn't put it past him if he was Jurgen Klopp's immediate successor. So, fair play to him, and indeed, good Motherwell man Gary McAllister, who's apparently working wonders at the club as well.
Yeah, well, Gary McAllister's just an absolutely fantastic boy. Comes from this village that I live in, Darren, as all the best people do in Lanarkshire, to be perfectly honest with you. Yep, Macca's doing okay. He's a good lad. And as you mentioned there, Tam, Steven Gerrard's Rangers onto Liverpool, certainly feasible, Darren, in my book, because Frank Lampard went Derby, then Chelsea. Mikel Arteta, assistant to Pep Guardiola, now Arsenal. So he's more than capable of going there. I just wonder if Steven Gerrard wants maybe another couple of years at Rangers just to see if he can set up, Rangers as a force winning more than one trophy. I wonder if that's his driving force.
I would think so, Peter, yeah. But it all depends when Jurgen Klopp wants to leave, if Steven does get the job. And obviously he's a prime candidate, an absolute world-class player for England and for Liverpool. But actually going back to the two who I think, I was a big... Tam spoke about the genius in Glenn Hoddle. That was my hero growing up, and I was a Spurs fan, and I managed to play against him at Newcastle in the FA Cup, and I was actually playing against Glenn Hoddle, and I've got to say, and not through embarrassment, I had the worst game I have ever had because I was just mesmerised by him, and he was just an absolute genius as a player. But my tip's Manchester City. I think they've been slow in getting started, and I just think, see Van Dijk going out, I think it's disrupted Liverpool. I think there's obviously a whole load of players, and for Andy Robertson, I would love Liverpool to go on and do it, but I just think Man City are coming. Aguero will get his fitness back in the next few weeks, and to get him back in the team, you saw their performance the other night. That's a good Chelsea team, Peter. People can't say they're not a good side. Chelsea have really good players, and Man City just made them look very ordinary.
Yeah, and Roughie and I were commentating on that game that you played against Glenn Hoddle, and we were saying, Roughie, I remember it, get him off. He's rank rotten. Who is he? Who's that guy with the who's that guy with the mullet wearing the Newcastle strip? He's rank rotten. Get him off. Roughie, here's a big dilemma for us.
Yeah, I'm sure I've seen other games where he was just as bad as well. I couldn't get my head around that one.
Roughie, there was. Don't worry, there was.
Let's not narrow it down. Listen, just before we go, it's quite significant now that we're all in lockdown, and to everyone who's following us on the programme, and the numbers have been absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much to each and every one of you for following us and giving us your messages on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter as well. We really do appreciate it, and hopefully you enjoy the managers' interviews and the players, and of course the chat. Some of the opinion, we don't necessarily ask you to agree with it, but you can batter as if you don't. But in lockdown, I just wonder, Tam, when you said that, I know you're not a big fan of English football. I like English football, European football. I just wonder, as we hit this lockdown again, which is similar to what was happening in March, Tam. I've watched the complete series of Ozark, which was hard going. I've watched the complete box set of The Sopranos, and I'm now going to coax my wife to go back with me. I've seen it, but she hasn't. I'm going to coax her to watch The West Wing. I just wonder, Tam, what you're watching when you don't watch English football, because it's Tottenham Brentford tonight, and it's Man United Man City tomorrow, and I just wonder what you occupy your time with then.
Yeah, if any viewers are looking for any tips, you can't go wrong with Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry David, which is almost shown in a loop on the Sky Comedy channel. So I series linked them. I do the same even with arguably the greatest American export. It was Channel 4 that picked it up in its infancy in the early 80s. That, of course, is Cheers. The Boston Bar, where I bet we would all love to be able to wander in there tonight and have a wee drink, a wee bit of chat with Norm and Cliff. I'm also an Offie man, as you know, Peter, for Only Fools and Horses. I could recite scripts for Only Fools and Horses. So I like what I call, particularly at times like this. I mean, I'm dressed for lockdown again. This is me in my lockdown uniform. I've got the goonie on. I came out the shower this morning, straight into the lovely comfy goonie. I'm ready for lockdown. And you like what I call comfort viewing. So whether it is Curb or Fools and Horses or Cheers, they'll do for me any day of the week. A wee bit of Alan Partridge, perhaps. Anything involving Ricky Gervais, brilliant.
Yeah, magic. My heart, just skipped a beat there when you said you had a shower and straight into the comfy goonie. But thankfully, we're still on here. Roughie, what about yourself?
Well, obviously in the lockdown there, I wasn't particularly good. I watched the 8 episodes of The Serpent, which is on BBC iPlayer. It is absolutely, have to watch it. Couldn't stop watching it. I just took every episode as it came. To go way back then and see the things that people got away with is absolutely ridiculous, and I'm glad he get caught in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Darren, the last words with you on this because we're hanging on it. I mean, I've got two things I'm watching. I'm watching The Thick of It. Armando Iannucci, an absolute genius of a scriptwriter, and also I've got my wife ready for The West Wing. So, what about you?
Peter, you know me, I'm not really a box set. My sister and brother-in-law have told me to watch Succession. Is it? Have you heard of that?
Right.
Yeah,
Nope.
I watched that. Fantastic. But I'm with Tam, and I don't know why. I just turned it on the other day there, and listen, I know every episode as well, but I've been watching the last few Fools and Horses, and it's just an absolute genius that wrote that, and the acting is just brilliant, and it just brings back memories and all that, and I've loved it. But I will watch the Tottenham Brentford game tonight, and I think it's great that they're one-offs. I think that's going to make it an even better games than rather home and away. I think.
Yeah, don't worry, I missed that last bit, Dan, but I know you're going to watch Tuesday and Wednesday, to be perfectly honest with you. Anyway, on that note, thanks to Tam for his insight, Darren and Roughie. Don't forget to watch Peter and Roughie's football show in that schedule of programmes that you're going to watch in lockdown again. We'll be with you Monday to Friday, bringing you all the interviews, of course, the reaction to the football in Scotland as well. Certainly looking forward to bringing you all the way through to the end of the season with some big news on other little programmes that we're going to be bringing your way as well. So from Roughie, from Tam, from Darren and myself, Peter Marston, don't forget, like, share and follow, hit the subscribe button, and thank you for watching.
Expect the best used car deals guaranteed. Visit Arnold